Batter up.
Rock and Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. MLB is the place to be. Rock and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stacks and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of NY MLB Talk with your hosts Rob and Chris as we cover the Mets and the Yankees and Major League Baseball. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter, on TikTok at NYMLB Talk. You can follow us on YouTube as well. Hit that sub button if you can. So, Rob, we got our special guest today. Why don't you introduce him and we can get going?
Yeah, listen, we're welcoming back former Mets, Cubs, and Cubs GM Ed Lynch back to the show. Loved it when Ed did the show in the beginning of the year before we were on video and everything. Ed, thanks for coming back on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It's really good to see you. So let's get started. I just want to apologize. We had a little technical difficulties, but everything's good, everyone. I know you've been waiting all week to hear from Ed, so we're gonna get started. Ed, did you real quick? We just wanted to ask you: did you get into the World Series this year?
Yeah, I did. I watched quite a bit of it. It was exciting as hell, and I worked in Toronto the last 7 years of my career as a major league scout. And what people don't realize about Toronto, it's the third largest market in baseball. It's ahead of Chicago. The way they calculate it, there's some huge suburbs around Toronto. And I was actually at the 92 and 93 World Series up there, so I know how crazy it got. And, there's 42 million people in Canada, and every one of them was rooting for the Blue Jays. And, I remember my first day there, Paul Beeston was the president, and he got us together and said, the hell with the Red Sox nation. We are a nation, and that kind of hit home, They're divided on hockey amongst themselves, if Montreal's playing Edmonton, it's broken up. But when it's Team Canada or the Blue Jays playing an American team or a Canadian hockey team playing an American hockey team, that whole country comes together. So it was exciting.
Yeah, it was an exciting World Series. It definitely was. It really, I'm telling you, the way it ended, it was just crazy, back and forth. But the Dodgers, the Dodgers are just so strong, and they got healthy at the right time, and everything just clicked together. So
both games in Toronto were just amazing. I mean, right down to the wire.
Yeah, they definitely.
Yeah, that's going to tell the tale in the World Series. And what you're seeing more often now is your best starting pitchers are coming in relief, and
it's incredible.
When you're a starting pitcher, the caliber of a Yamamoto, and somebody tells you that before the year started, your most high pressure outing this year is going to be out of the bullpen in the World Series. You think you were insane,
Game 7.
We just don't have enough pitchers. It's crazy. We can't keep enough pitchers healthy, and they don't trust a lot of the pitchers in the bullpen now.
Yeah.
Chris, you wanted to ask Ed about the pitching and how crazy it is now, where they're just pitching, even in the World Series, it's like by committee, pitching one inning.
Oh, the openers, right? I mean, openers. Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts about we see it in the regular season, it happens, but now we're seeing it in the playoffs, the World Series. We see openers. What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Well, I mean, the problem is they can't keep pitchers healthy. 893 pitchers appeared in a major league game this year. Now, 20 years ago, it was 600. So it's gone up. You got 45+% increase in the number of pitchers. It's crazy. The Dodgers had 38 pitchers and 2 positions.
Yeah. Yeah. It just is amazing. And it was, listen, our teams weren't in it, Chris, but it was a great World Series. The whole postseason was really, really good. And the numbers are showing it. The American League Championship Series had the most since 2017, most viewers, right? And same thing with this last game. It was just amazing.
Yeah, this one had, I think, 25 million or 24 million viewers for Game 7, which was pretty amazing.
Thanks, Maria. Is Ed frozen? Do you
I think so.
Chris?
Yes, I think he is frozen.
All right, he's gotta come in and out. So let me text him and let him know. There
Right.
he is. All right. Well, we'll talk while we're waiting for Ed to come back. We'll talk about that last game.
Yeah.
Game 7.
Listen,
Everybody
was
loves
that the best
game.
game 7 we've seen?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it was crazy, and you got to feel bad for. I mean, maybe you don't feel so bad, but you have to feel bad for those Toronto Blue Jay fans. You know,
The good ones, yeah. The good fans, yes. I definitely feel bad. You know, like our Blue Jays dad, who was on what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? Great guest, great guy. That's a guy I feel bad for because I know he's been a Blue Jay fan from day one. You know, his kids are Blue Jay fans, and now he's got grandkids. So, you know, those are the kind of people you feel bad for. Another friend of the show, Matt Harvey, he's out there. I'm sure he was. I know he was upset about it, and you know, I could listen. We could put ourselves in that, you know, in that game because I remember Game 7 from 2001. Heartbreaking loss, you know, and of course 2004, you know, losing the 4 straight. That was horrible. But this is a game. I'm going to be curious to see how the Blue Jays respond from this. Like, can they get off? Like, how are they going to like survive after a loss like this? Can they come back next year? I know a lot of guys are going to leave and all that. We know that every team goes through it. But can they like get off the mat and just come back from a loss like that? I don't know.
I don't know. Like Bo Bichette, where do you think he lands? Do you think he stays with resigns with the Blue Jays? Do you think, you know, what do you think the Mets? What do you think? The Yankees?
Listen, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be a good fit for the Yankees because I don't think they see him as a shortstop, right? Because he's not a great defender. But listen, the Mets could easily sign him for second base, right? You really don't have a guy at second base right now. I mean, Jeff McNeil shouldn't be your starting second baseman next year, right? So I could see the Mets going for him. I don't know if he fits well with the Yankees unless you move in Jazz and all that stuff, and I don't think that's going to happen either. So, but yeah, I mean, Bichette's going to be out there for sure. He's going to get a decent amount of money too because think about this. He led the team in RBIs this year. It wasn't Vladdy, right? It wasn't anybody else. It was Bo Bichette. So he's definitely going to get some. He's definitely going to get some good offers out there from teams for sure.
I think so. And for everybody out there, Ed is having some technical difficulties. So as soon as he fixes it, he'll come back on and we'll extend the show a little so we get our time with Ed. But until then, you guys are going to have to listen to me and Chris talk about everything. So, and I don't want to talk about the subjects we were going to talk to with Ed. So we're going to have to, you know.
Well, we'll stick with Game 7. I mean, I think it's 2 and just talk about the Blue Jays, how they're going to come back next year. You know, I think to me, that's going to be such a big, a big storyline going into next season. How are they going to respond? You know, how are they going to come back from that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough because we know. I mean, although the Dodgers just repeated, we know how hard it is just to get back to the World Series. You know, hey, look at the Yankees. It's just so hard. With the way the postseason plays now, more teams in it, more, you know, the extra rounds, it's just hard for teams to get back. So, you know, that's pretty impressive that the Dodgers did. And Dan did not want to see the Dodgers celebrate on Blue Jays turf, which, Ed is back, which is,
sorry about that.
Dan, I agree with you, Dan. But, you know, and Chris feels bad only for one thing. You want to see Don Mattingly finally get a ring. And
I really did. And you could see it definitely affected him. They showed him after the game, and he was just sitting there, and Bichette actually gave him a little hug and all that. And I felt horrible for him because he's gotten close, but, you know, or he just wasn't there that year when the Yankees won it in '96. You know, he left after '95, and
Chris,
it's
Chris,
awful.
Ed knows more than anybody about that. You know,
Yes,
Ed knows about that with the '86 Mets. So it's tough. It's really tough when something like that happens. But we're glad that Ed is back. Chris, you wanted to ask him that GM question, right? Why don't we get to it?
Yeah, I mean, Ed, just for being a GM, like what are they going through right now, preparing for the offseason, right? Like, let's say, you know, you're a GM that didn't make the playoffs, right? So you've had, you know, this extra month to really prepare for the offseason. Like, well, what's going on with the teams now with all these opt-outs coming up, and now you see the free agent list, your needs and all that.
Yeah, I mean, you're what you're doing is you're getting together with all your major league scouts. I don't know if teams have them anymore, but you know, you're putting the data together, and you know, you guys texted me. One of the questions was, you know, how do you know where teams stand trade wise? Well, a lot of you can tell right away. I mean, if they have a, you know, Pittsburgh, for instance, you know, under the current system, they really don't have a chance to win. So you're going to call about Paul Skeens. You know, you have to just make the call and see if they're going to move him or not. And unfortunately, in the system the way it is now, you know, certain teams cannot afford to keep their players. And you know, if somebody on Kansas City or even Milwaukee is going to be a really good player, is going to be a free agent after next year, I mean, you're going to inquire about that player. But everybody needs pitching. Everybody needs bullpen. And as we talked about earlier, everybody's a reliever now.
Yeah.
The average start is probably under 5 innings now for the first time in history. So, I mean, you're always looking for pitching. The most valuable commodity in our game is a young 0 to 3 service time pitcher. You don't have to pay him. He's young. You're going to have control over him for a few years. So nobody wants to give that up. I can get any position player I want. That was my philosophy. Just got to give up pitching to do it, young pitching. So that's what you're trying to do. Right now, you're getting ready for the GM meetings. And in my day, it was the 30 GMs and 1 assistant was allowed. And so you had 60 guys in a room, and you just set up meetings. And, you know, you're not going to meet with certain teams. You know, they're just not going to move their best players or, you know, they don't need what you have. And, you know, you try to get an idea what other teams think about you and your system, too. So it's really you're gathering a lot of information right now and deciding if there's anything to talk about at the GM meetings.
So just for an example, like at the meetings coming up, the Pittsburgh GM is probably going to have discussions with a lot of teams, right?
Oh, sure.
If Skeens is available. Now go to the other team, Detroit. We've heard Skubal is probably going to be available. So that's another guy that, you know,
that would be hard to do. I mean, they got to the playoffs for the first time in a while. Now you're going to trade your best starter. So I don't think they'll trade him unless someone just knocks him off their chair with, you know, a ridiculous amount of young pitching. So, and you look at the teams that can afford a guy like that or can afford to pay players, you know, in return, and aren't that many.
Well, we know, Chris, the New York Mets have a lot of young pitching that they could trade to Detroit. So I feel if Steve Cohen wants somebody, Steve Cohen's going to get that person. That's how I feel. Even if David Stearns doesn't want it, if Cohen wants it, that's going to happen. That's what I
think my picture is frozen.
That's okay. We could hear you. Though, so.
Well, hey, listen, one thing you learn real quick, owners are never wrong, you know, so what Steve Cohen wants, Steve Cohen gets, and that's the way it should be. And he's been a godsend for Met fans. And, you know, there's no player who's out of reach in terms of what you got to pay him or what free agents you're going to go after. So it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting off seasons now for the Mets, whereas before Steve Cohen, it wasn't very exciting or encouraging because you knew that the Mets were not going to go after the December free agents, we call them, you know, the big guys. And so it should be exciting. And, you know, everybody thinks they have good pitching. You know, everybody's pretty much gathered around the middle when it comes to systems. You know, everybody says, well, we have the best system in baseball. How do you know that? Right. You know, it's not exactly an unbiased opinion. So, but the old saying was, I can get any player I want in baseball. I mean, I've got 5, 10, 15 guys that are going to pitch in the big leagues in my system. So, I mean, if I give up enough guys, I can get anybody. But do you want to do that? So,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
That's key. Now, I wanted to bring up. I want to change the subject a little. In September, we lost Davey Johnson. And I just wanted, I've said this before, real quick. Davey was the first player or manager I ever interviewed. Jay Horowitz was very, very good to me when I was a kid in college, and he gave me access to some of the Mets from the '85 team. Ed, you weren't one of them. You weren't there, but there was a bunch of them. And Davey graciously answered my questions, and he was really good to me too. Could I have your feelings about Davey?
Well, he was great. I'll tell you, when he came in, it was a breath of fresh air. He treated us like men. There was no silly rules, and he really knew how to handle a pitching staff. When you look down at the things that a manager has to do, and I've had endless conversations about this with several baseball people, and the way it used to be, it's changed somewhat now because the manager is not making a lot of decisions on the bench like they used to. But the number one thing a manager has to do is motivate the players. Number two, he's got to handle a pitching staff. And number three, if you're in certain markets, and New York is certainly one of those markets, you got to be able to handle the media. And Davey was a very smart guy. I mean, you guys remember, he's got a computer. Like, wow, it's like he's coming up here with a spaceship or something, And it was just a very simple. It was probably a Macintosh or something, and I don't know if what he could do with it, but he was a very smart guy. But he could really handle a pitching staff, and boy, was he handed a good but young staff, and he handled it as good as you can handle it. The ultimate compliment I can give a manager is when you're down in that bullpen, no matter when it is in the game, when that phone rings, everybody knows you're up. Everybody knows. There's no surprises. It's very logical. Now, it's easier to manage a bullpen when your starters are going 7 innings every night, with Dwight Gooden, Ron Darling, Sid Fernandez. I had 6 complete games in 1985, which not only would have led every player in the league this year, would have led every team in the year in complete games. So, we were all going deep into games when I was in that rotation in 85. So, Davey, it was kind of ironic. I mean, it's a very difficult job because you have such good young pitching, but it's an easy job because they're going to go out and get people out. But he handled it as well as he could handle. Any manager could have handled that team. Yeah, no,
he was great. And talking about 1985, that was your best year in the major leagues, right? You were 10-8 with a 3.44 ERA. I have another question. I've always wondered. Did that year, did the Mets, besides the obvious with the bat and everything, did acquiring Gary Carter help you out as a pitcher in 1985?
Yeah, well, I tell people all the time, he was the greatest catcher I ever threw to. And they said, what, he called a good game, throw people out? I said, no, he hit a 3-run homer every time I pitched. Gary's in the Hall of Fame because Gary could hit. He had some bad, God rest his soul, but he had some bad habits as a catcher. He was so big, he set up really high, and he put that target right down the middle. I mean, if I'm Dwight Gooden, give me a target down the middle. But you're Ed Lynch, you got to work the corners a little bit, Right. So I remember one day, me and Tom Gorman were talking about it, and we called Tom Gorman Gorfax, one of the funniest guys I ever played with. But what he did, he went into Gary's locker, got his mask, got a leather string, tied it around one end around the mask and the other one around his glove. And he'd go, hey, kid, all you got to do now is put your mask on and stick your hand in. Gary laughed it off,
Yeah.
But you could negotiate with Gary. I mean, that's what made him so great. I mean, I was very quick to the plate. But Gary, being Gary, when a base stealer, we're playing St. Louis and Vince Coleman's on first base, it's 1-1-1-1 coming down, fastball, fastball, fastball. And I'm like, hey, kid, I got to throw breaking balls and changeups. And he goes, I'll tell you what, if you get your release point down below 1.3 seconds, I'll call more breaking balls. I said, fine. And I'll be damned if he didn't time it. He went on video and timed it. I said, okay, all right. And another thing I did with Gary, he was really good during the game at adapting. I said, hey, kid, if you call for a fastball and I throw a changeup, can you catch it? He goes, yeah, I can do that. You can't catch a slider if you call in fastball, but you can catch a changeup. So a lot of times, we do second sign, first sign after, second sign, 1-3 wiggle, second sign. That's all we did. But what we did was I would touch my hand to my chest and my cap, and he would swipe like we're doing something, and we weren't. And I remember one time it was a 2-1 pitch. He called, 1-1-3, whatever. And I threw a change up. And I remember looking at the guy on second. He just puts his hands up in the air like, shit, I don't know what's coming, I thought it was going to be a fastball, But Gary was really good at blocking pitches. He threw well enough. He would work with you. He didn't, when he struck out, he wouldn't just go out there moping around because he struck out. He would help you with the umpires. And, he was such a commanding presence and such a superstar that the umpires would listen to him, So, yeah, he was great. He was a great guy. Now, there were other catchers that were better catchers, like Jody Davis.
Yeah.
But Gary Carter had that big bat, that big clutch bat. So it was hard to beat him in terms of anybody being better.
Yeah, of course. Listen, the key besides Gooden and Strawberry and the young kids coming up, and besides Keith getting traded was, of course, Gary coming over. Because when the Mets announced that trade in December of 1984, as a Met fan, as a young kid, not a young kid, I was in college. I was excited about that because you guys had a great year. You had a great year in '84. But Ron Hodges was I guess your main catcher, right?
Yeah, and Junior Ortiz was there.
That's right.
I mean, it was just an automatic out behind the plate, basically. Ron Hodges is dead now, so I guess I can say that. But
yeah,
what's funny about that trade? I'm watching Monday Night Football, and Howard Cosell. The Mets just made a blockbuster trade. They got Gary Carter for the following players, and it wasn't like now with cell phones or anything. Yeah. I'm at a buddy's house. Nobody get a hold of me,
Right.
And he starts going at Herm Winningham and Hubie Brooks, and I'm like getting closer to the screen, getting ready to collapse because nobody wanted to go to Montreal, not after '84. The Mets were on the verge of great things, and you're going to go to another country. So, yeah, Hubie was not a happy guy after that. He was not happy, and none of the guys were. But it worked out good for him. And Montreal's a great city, and and they were always competitive. They were always good. So, but I remember that day. But, if you look at an organization, the way you build an organization, and I was there when the Mets were terrible. In '80, we finished last, '81 last, '82 last, '83 last. Now, '84, all of a sudden, we win 90 games. There's three main ways to improve your organization. Number one is through trades. Number two is through the draft. And number three is free agents. And the Mets, nobody did better in 2 out of 3. The draft and trades, getting Ron Darling and Walt Terrell for Lee Mazzilli, getting who we turned into Hojo. Walt Terrell went to Detroit. We got Hojo. Yeah. Trading, Rick Omby and Neil Allen for Keith Hernandez. I mean, when's the last time a team won the World Series and by June of the following year they trade their best player? It just never happened. Yeah. Keith was the real catalyst.
Yes.
Because before that, if we lost the game, it would be like, we gave it our best shot. Hey, where are we eating tonight? When Keith came over, it was like a personal insult when we lost. It's like somebody walked up and bitch slapped your mother or something. I mean, people were not happy. They were not happy in that clubhouse after a game. And God forbid, if you didn't get a bunt down, if you made a physical error, nobody'd say a word. But if you made a dumb mental error, boy, Keith would be on your ass. And that's what a leader does.
Yeah. Listen, I wanted to ask you since I saw this. I was watching a series when they were in Arizona, and Keith said to the guys in the booth, I'm not working the next series, so I'm going to stay in Arizona for a couple of days and hang out with my friend Ed Lynch. So I said, you know what? Next time we took the Ed, I gotta ask him, what did you do? What do you do with Keith when you hang out with him?
Well, he had his wife with him. I'll call her his wife. And we just went out to eat and had a great dinner, talked for a while, laughed, reminisced, just what good friends do, and it's funny. I pitched for the 86 Mets and I pitched against the 86 Mets. I started a game in Wrigley Field against Dwight Gooden, and Keith beat me with a home run in the 8th inning. And that was in probably late August, maybe, right in there. And 3 months later, he's in my wedding, November 8th, 86. It's coming up. And, they won the World Series, and probably 8-9 days later, he flies to Miami and he's in my wedding. So that's how close we are. We're like brothers. He is something else, very intelligent guy. Yeah. And the thing that I think people love about, Ronnie is the consummate professional, and Keith is like that voice out of left field who's going to say anything, but it's always right on. And he's not afraid to criticize players. Right. He's, back in my day, Tim McCarver and Ralph Kiner, those guys were rough, boy. I'll tell you, if you didn't perform, you'd hear about it from them. I get calls from my family,
Yeah.
And but now they're such homers. I mean, it's laughable, and they're screaming and yelling about a base hit to left field. It's like, Jesus, calm down. And there's too much talking going on. That's why I love Vin Scully, boy. He wasn't afraid of silence. He's in that booth now. Now I know why he wanted to be in the booth by himself.
Yeah. Nobody's better than Vin Scully.
No, he was the best.
Not even close.
No, not even close.
That's the crazy thing. But before you got traded to Chicago, did you get the feeling like this is going to be a special team, or it is?
Oh yeah, of
special
course.
Team.
Yeah.
So when
and
you
I
got
knew I was getting traded too. I knew it. I went down on a rehab. I had knee surgery in April. Got rehab with the team. They sent me down in early June for 21 days. It used to be 3-week rehab to Norfolk. And I knew it was coming because the last pitcher on the staff was Rick Aguilera, making $38,000 or something, and I just won an arbitration against Frank Cashin for $530,000. He wasn't happy about that, so I knew I was gone. And the irony of the whole thing, they always trade you to the team you do the best against. So now you're on the team that you did the best against, and you can't do the best against them anymore. So. So I was 4-0 against the Cubs in '85. So I guess that's why I got traded to '86. But I pitched really well in the second half of '86 for the Cubs.
And it was funny because you always had a connection with the Cubs. I checked this out. In '85, do you remember causing a bench clearing brawl?
Absolutely. Okay. That was 84, August.
Oh, that was 84. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It was Keith Moreland. We could not beat the Cubs, especially in Wrigley Field. And I think at that point, we were like 0-7. We played them 18 times. So we played them 9 times in Wrigley Field. We were 1-8 there for the year. Bruce Berenghi beat them in the last game we played there in 84. But, it was like base hit. Ronnie Darling had it was a double header. Wind is blowing out hard, and that's like a nightmare for a pitcher. So Ronnie pitched game 1. Look it up. It's like August 7th or 8th, 1985. Yeah. Double header. Ronnie had the worst outing of his career. I'm sitting in the clubhouse. Here comes Ronnie. I stink. He was a young kid. And he's 22 years old, and he gave up 8 earned runs, I think, in 2 1/3. And so I went out in the second game, got him out for 3, and then it was like a base hit, error, sac fly, broken bat single, home run. I said, screw it, I'm done. And I heard later when I got traded over there, Keith Moreland, Jody Davis told me Keith Moreland was on deck. He had the donut on his bat, and he hit the ground with the bat, and the donut came off, and he's getting ready to walk up to the hit. He goes to Jody, he's going to hit me, and I'm going to go get him. And then, Junior Ortiz was catching, and now, how catchers look down at the hitter's feet, then they look up to see if they're peeking. And then, he goes to give me a sign, and I'm already halfway through my windup. He goes, oh, no. So Keith, I hit him in the rear end. I would never throw into anybody's head. And he comes out, and I'm going to stick and move and win a split decision. He comes in. He played football at Texas, so he comes in low, bam, hits me across my legs. And we go down. Everybody piles on. And, that rivalry was like a friendly rivalry. It was intense, but it wasn't like the Cardinals. I mean, our relationship with the Cardinals was absolutely toxic. It was pure hatred because Keith came over to us, and him and Whitey did not like each other. God rest Whitey's soul. So there was a lot of bad blood between us. But the Cubs was kind of like we respected them. They respected us. We all of us had friends on the Cubs. We knew. I played with Jody in the minor leagues. He was a Met. I mean, that was Yeah, I remember going back to the hotel after the game and got several death threats. And I didn't even pay attention to them.
Wow.
That's crazy. And listen, the rivalry was for Met fans and Cub fans, because I was in the stands for those games. It was almost as bad as the Cardinals. The Met fans hated the Cub fans. There were a lot of shirts that said Cub Busters out there, because that's the time of Ghostbusters in the stands. I remember that well, because I was at so many games. I don't know how many games. I saw you pitch a lot of games at Shea Stadium, Ed. A lot of games.
Yeah, those
years
were.
You were there.
Yeah, Big Shea. I mean, I went there I lived in New York as a kid. We moved to Miami when I was 12. So my dad used to take us to Met games in '64. I remember going the year it opened, going to the World's Fair and then the Met game, And remember how luxurious that place was when it was built. I mean, they even had, remember the top of the scoreboard, they had that thing, that screen, it had a Mets logo on it. It would open up and they show a picture of the hitter. I remember the first time I see Roy McMillan's picture up there, I was like, wow, what do they think of next?
Yeah. You know what? Citi Field is a beautiful ballpark. But Shea Stadium for me, because I've seen it all there. I just, when they knocked Shea down, I really felt it, even though people would call it a dump. It wasn't, or it was our dump, but
it was our dump. Exactly.
Yeah. I love Shea Stadium. Chris, it's almost the same. Like the new Yankee Stadium isn't the same for you, right?
No, totally different experience. Yeah, we always talk about it, like the mystique or the ghost of Yankee Stadium, all that. It's not there at the new stadium. It's totally different. I'm sure, Ed, you could explain this better.
I went to Yankee Stadium as a kid many times. Take the train down from Mamaroneck, and I mean, you're sitting there in a place where Babe Ruth hit a home run, Don Larson threw a perfect game. Yogi Berra. I mean, it was reeked of history. And also reeked too.
Right. Well, even
again, it was a dump, but it was our dump, And I remember going through the concourse, and they have a snack bar, and the line would go across the concourse up against the wall. So now you're fighting your way through people, and if you went and got a soda or something, you couldn't watch the game because you had to go out into the concourse or whatever. But boy, the history of that place was incredible, and I'd love to walk over to that park now and just stand where, Lou Gehrig played first base and, look around. You always see the Bronx Courthouse there. That's always like the picture you always see is that Bronx Courthouse out in right center field. So tons of history.
Yeah, that's the only cool thing about it, that now you could actually go to the old field and stand there. I did that a couple of years ago with my daughter, and it was just, you could feel it. You could feel the mystique coming from there. But you probably felt it too, like pitching in Wrigley Field, right?
Yeah. I used to always say I don't want to pitch anywhere where Babe Ruth hit a home run, and because it's right now it's in the middle of the pack in terms of pitchers where they don't want to pitch, but when I was in the National League, it would be the top of the list. No pitcher wanted to pitch at Wrigley Field. If you had a choice to not pitch there for the whole year, you grab it, because now if you go in early and the wind's blowing in, it's great. But when you go in there in the summertime, when it's blowing out, it's hot. When it's hot, it's blowing out. So, I mean, you get up in the morning, staying downtown at the West End, you look out and you're looking at the flags, where every flag is pointing, and right away it's going to be a good or bad day. So, Wrigley Field could be very difficult, but, you can't say anything. It's so different now. I mean, Ricketts has put hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in it. And, I'll tell you a funny story. When they redoing it, he did the important stuff first. If you're standing in the third base dugout, the Cubs dugout, and you're down, and so the field is probably about chest high, and you're looking out to right field, you couldn't see the right fielder below his neck, really. All you could see was his head. That's how big the crown was on there, and it was the infield was terrible. The field was brutal. So they went down, they dug out like 4 feet of earth. Every field is about 3 acres. So you're basically digging out 3 acres and then you're putting in a state-of-the-art drainage system. You're putting in like really good substances below the ground to keep the field level. Then you're putting the best dirt, the best grass, you're laser leveling it. And I heard a story that when they were doing that, the construction crew found 2 concrete squares with a round hole in the top about 10 yards apart or 10 feet apart, whatever, right behind first base. And they couldn't figure out what it was. So they called in an old grounds crew guy, and he goes, "Oh, that's where we used to stick the goalposts for the Bears games." And remember the H goalpost, the H, it was on the goal line. Yes. And it was like an H. And so the Bears played there for a long time. And so, Wrigley Field is a special place. It's so different now than it was, 30 years ago when I worked there.
Yeah, and I think they built a lot of buildings which changed the wind, the way the wind affects it.
I never thought of that. That's probably true. It's probably true.
It is, and so you're never going to get that effect like you used to. Like I remember Kingman just hitting some shots out of there.
Oh yeah.
He hit
that ball down that street. It hit the lady's porch, and she came out like somebody knocked on the door. I remember that.
That's right.
I played with Dave in
I know,
in New York.
I know.
He hit a home run. He hit a home run in Montreal that hit the roof. Where the roof would come up. It didn't completely. There was a big hole in the middle at Stade Olympic Stadium.
Yeah.
And he hit the inside of the roof above the foul pole, and the umpire didn't know what to do. He called it foul. So the next time in there, they put an orange line on the inside of the roof so they could tell you couldn't hit a 5-iron up there. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, he was. Listen, if he was amazing when he hit them. He struck out a lot, as we know, but when he got
analytic guys would love him. The analytic guys would absolutely love Dave.
He's perfect for
because they don't care about defense, they don't care about strikeouts, they don't care about batting average. They do care about home runs.
Yep.
Definitely. We had a question for Ed from another viewer. Kevin from the Bronx wants to know what it was like watching a young Doc Gooden take over the city.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. In 1983, he was an A-ball, and I was on the Mets, and we had heard for some reason that Lynchburg, the team he was on, was Virginia, is going to play the Padres A-ball affiliate at Shea Stadium, like on a Wednesday afternoon, at 2:00, and we had a game that night. And I paid attention, so I knew who Dwight Gooden was. And I talked to Joe McIlvaine all the time. He'd be around. I'd say, "Hey, who we got in the minor leagues?" He'd go, "Man, you got to see this guy, Dwight Gooden." So I'm watching, in the sporting news. It's the only way you can get anything, And so they come to town, and Dwight's pitching. So Sam Perlazzo was the manager, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I sit on the bench? I'll put on my uniform and, I had a jacket." He goes, "Oh, man, that'd be great. The guys would love it." So I sat on the bench and watched Dwight pitch in probably May or June of 1983 for the Lynchburg Mets. Against the Padres affiliate. He struck out 14, and a guy hit a 2-run homer off him in like the 8th inning, and he lost. He was 19-4 that year with 300 strikeouts as an 18-year-old.
Wow.
So coming into spring training the next year, it's funny. Nobody else gave a darn, that day. They all stayed in the clubhouse. I was like, man, I'm going to go out and watch this guy, So coming into the next spring, I knew what was coming. I knew the potential, and he went out there and just dominated early. But you're facing a lot of AA guys. The regulars would get one at bat. He'd come in relief, so he's facing like double, AAA guys, but he's striking everybody out and giving up nothing. So then they give him a start against a good team, and he makes them look like little leaguers. He's dominating in spring training, and I remember we were out running. And Davey Johnson was out there, and he came over to our group, and somebody said, "Hey, is Dwight going to make this team?" And Dwight's sitting there like kicking the dirt, and he said, "I'll talk to you guys later." So later on, he comes over to us, some of the veterans, and said, "Well, Frank says I can't keep him, but I'm fighting like hell." And Joe McIlvaine told me later that Davey was in there every day. Dwight's got to make this team. He's got to make this team. So finally, at the end of spring, Frank Cashin said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. Have him pitch against a tough team and a tough venue. And if he does well, then you can keep him." So the worst place to pitch was Fort Lauderdale against your beloved Yankees because they were good and the wind always blew out, And he went out there and pitched 6 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no earned runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. I mean, they couldn't sniff a hit. And the whole spring, he was number 64. So we're standing out there the next day. That was Sunday. We had off day Monday. So Tuesday, we're out there standing, and here he comes running out with number 16. And we're like, okay, man, he just made the team.
I guess.
Because back then, nobody wanted those high numbers, you know.
Yeah.
As soon as you make the team, you got rid of 64. Now, you know, now everybody, you know, got, you know, the best player in the American League were in 99, for Christ's sakes, you know. So.
That is
but
true.
then the season started, and you know, we go to Houston, and he's starting, and you know, Houston was a great place to pitch. I think they had it so he pitched there. They had a bunch, you know, they were a speed team. They didn't have a lot of power, but the mound was super high because of Nolan Ryan. I think they knocked it down when they came in and measured it and built it back up when he pitched. I mean, it was a great, and you couldn't hit it out of there. If someone hit a ball directly over your head at the dome to center field, unless it had a blue flame coming out of the back of it, Mookie's going to catch it, you know?
Yeah.
You couldn't hit balls opposite field, forget it. So he goes in there, and to this day, I think it's the hardest I've ever seen a human being throw a baseball. And he told me later he was nervous as hell, and we were all nervous on our debut. So he's scared, and he's you know, he's jacked, but he still managed to keep his command, and he pitched 5 innings, and he got the win. But I mean, he just overmatched the league. I mean, how many guys go to the big leagues at age 19? You're a teenager in the National League. You go 17-6 with 289 strikeouts or some ridiculous thing like that.
Yeah,
I remember in September he pitched against the Reds and the Pirates. I want to say he won both complete games. I think he gave up 1 run. No, he gave up no runs in either game, or 1 run in 2 games, and struck out 35 guys. It was like an all-time. It was a record. The biggest difference between runs given up and strikeouts in the history of baseball at 19 years old. I mean, that's how amazing it was. And you know, if it wasn't for Rick Sutcliffe, he would have won the Cy Young Award, because Rick went to Pittsburgh. It was 16-1, and they won the division. So he was deserving. But you know, back then we used to chart games, and I pitched after Dwight in '85, probably a bunch of times. I remember charting him, and you know, guys I would never dream of striking out. He's striking them out looking, and they're just walking away. That's a sign that your stuff is unhittable. When Pete Rose takes a curveball and just taps the dirt out of his spikes and turns around and walks away, you know, it's a pretty good pitch. You know,
yeah. That was easily one of the best curveballs I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Watching.
Yeah.
So, all right, you said that about Gooden. What about with Strawberry coming up? How was watching him?
Yeah, Straw was different, you know, because we were not a good team, and it was an immense amount of pressure on Dwight, and you know, Jay Horowitz was still feeling his way. It was only his 3rd or 4th year, '83. So it was his 4th year, I guess, and we never had a player like that come up, you know. And so when he come, I remember the first weekend he was there, they had Strawberry Sunday.
I remember that.
First 15,000 get a Strawberry Sunday. Remember, Frozen?
Yes.
And I'm thinking, boy, this guy's a rookie, and you know, Darryl save us. I think it was in the Daily News. Darryl save us. Wait a minute, you got a 21 right fielder going to come in and save the organization? It's just not going to happen. And but you could see right away, you know, the power and speed, the arm. He was, you know, 5-tool guy, you know, off the charts. The only one that was probably average or a little above would be his batting average. You know, that's strictly by the numbers. But his power, everything's graded on 2 to 8. I don't know why, but he had 80 power, 80 runner. He was an 80 outfielder, had an 80 arm. And so he was 4 of the 5 tools were off the charts, and the other one was solid average to a tick above. So he's a real 5-tool player.
Yeah. I have to tell you something funny. I was at Strawberry Sunday, and I was in the upper deck, and you know what was happening with some of those ice creams, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, that must have been a mess.
There were people. It was a
throwing
mess.
them on the field.
Yeah, it was a mess. They were throwing them all over the place. And
They only did it once. They only did it once, or they did it every Sunday.
No, they did it
just
that
once.
one time. Just
one
once.
Hey, remember Bat Day?
Yes.
I remember one day I'm warming up in the bullpen and I look up at the stands. We're getting killed. And I can see like 6 bats on this side waving around and 6 on this side. And they're like clashing. It was like a medieval fight, you know. I think that's why they decided to hand them out after the game.
Yes.
Or magnetic schedule night. Those things were heavy rubber things with magnets in them. You put them on your fridge.
Yep.
Boy, they were winging those things. And if that one of those hits you from the upper deck, you're probably going to be killed.
Yeah, well, those were always given out opening day, because I was at every opening day from 79 till like 2007.
Wow.
And they used to give them out on opening day.
So you saw Seaver pitch a lot. Well,
I saw Seaver pitch a lot. I saw Carter his first game when he hit the game-winning home run for opening day.
Off Neil Allen. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, that's right. I saw you pitch so many times. I like I said, I love Shea Stadium. But I wanted to ask you another question. My favorite position player on the Mets was Rusty Staub.
Oh, he was the best, man.
Yeah, could you just give me, any of your feelings about Rusty, any stories?
I love Rusty, and Keith was extremely close to Rusty.
Yes.
I know when Rusty passed, Keith was really broken up. I had never seen him that broken up. Even when his father died, it wasn't his reaction wasn't what it was when Rusty died. And we all knew it was coming. And I called him maybe 2 weeks before he died. And, it was me, Keith, and Rusty were single living in the city. So we went to and from the games a lot. And we would have dinners every Saturday night, because we're always on the game of the week, so we had Saturday nights off, which was great. And we go to a place called Tokubai in Manhattan, a Japanese restaurant. I don't even know if it's still there, but went there every Sunday. We were home, or every Saturday we were home. And boy, Rusty was unbelievable. When I came to the big leagues, I didn't have a glove contract or anything like that, and I had this big floppy glove. Yeah. And Rusty was great at watching the pitcher, and he could tell what he was going to throw by the way he held the ball, his glove. So if you have a big floppy glove, if you're going to throw a changeup, you hold it deep in your glove so your glove's wider. If you're throwing a fastball, you hold it more towards the heel of the glove, and it's more closed. So after I pitched a game, he said, "You're giving your pitches away." I said, "Really?" And he explained why. And then he handed me a brand new glove. Says, "Use this. And you can just knock the ball down. You don't have to catch it, if somebody hits a comebacker." And sure enough, the glove wouldn't move. So if I'm deep in my glove or on the heel, the glove's the same size. And he used to get Nolan Ryan all the time. Nolan Ryan being to wind up, and he'd look down. If he looked down at his glove and then threw, it was a curveball. If he didn't look, it was a fastball. If guys, in the windup, if they drop their hands all the way down to their waist and come back up, it's a fastball. If they don't go down as far, it's a breaking ball. I mean, all these things we did for years without even realizing, and Rusty had them all. And Keith used to sit right next to him. "You got anything? You got anything?" He was, and plus he was a god in the city.
Yes,
he owned that. He ran that charity for widows and children of slain firefighters and
NYPD,
and police. Yeah, so. He would average, he told me he averaged like 15 to 20 a year. And what they do, they put a $10,000 check to the widow or widower of a fireman or policeman who died in the line of duty, $10,000 just to help them with their mortgage and everything. So they loved him. And then, he was averaging about 15 a year, and then 9/11 came, and he still had the charity. Now you got 365 deceased firefighters and police. And he was very tight with George Bush 41, the old man.
Yeah,
his days in Houston, and so he called up the 41 and said, "Hey, can you have your son put me on a White House sanctioned charity for the guys at 9/11 in New York?" And he did, and that within a week he had $42 million in his.
That's great.
In his charity, and he handed it all out. Never took a dime for himself. Rusty. So he used to have this placard he put on his car, on the dashboard. He could leave his car running on the steps at City Hall and leave for 2 hours, and he wouldn't get a ticket.
That's great.
note, say thank you, Rusty.
Yeah, I loved Rusty Staub Day with when everybody wore the red hair.
Yeah, I was going by it.
Great.
No, I was
And
there. I was there.
Yeah, and I know you were, and from that game, I actually have a postcard that I still keep that's signed by Rusty, and for some reason Bobby Ojeda. I don't know how Bobby's signature got on there, but I've kept that because I just loved Rusty, and
it was great. He was hitting cleanup for the Houston Colt 45s when he was 19 years old.
I know he was just amazing. All right,
one last thing on Rusty. Here's a great trivia question. I think he got 500 hits for 4 different teams. That is absolutely incredible if you think about it. It's unbelievable.
It's just amazing. He, and then when he became the premier pinch hitter for you guys, it was absolutely. He took over for Eddie Kranepool because Eddie Kranepool was also a pretty good pinch hitter, but Rusty, I mean, he was great. I have a question from a couple of viewers. They want to know what your favorite ballpark to pitch in was and what your least favorite ballpark was.
Oh, my favorite was Shea Stadium, of course. But if it was on the road, I liked Houston because it was big and there was no bad hops. I liked Dodger Stadium. I don't know why I always pitched well there. And I would beat the Dodgers in LA and then not beat them in Shea. I mean, Shea was great. The grass was slow as hell. You had those jets roaring over every 40 seconds. The hitters were a mess. They didn't know, and when you're pitching, you don't even hear them anymore. You're so used to it that you just don't hear them. And it was a big ballpark. You didn't see guys going opposite field at Shea in the early to mid 80s. You just never saw it. And which is one of the big problems with the game now is we can talk about that at the end a little bit. With all the pitchers' injuries, there's a reason why. So but I would say Shea Stadium, and my least favorite was Wrigley Field. Again, I just didn't. And then when I got traded over there, and the one consolation you have when the wind is blowing out hard and you're on the mound pitching, there's one guy in the whole stadium that feels worse than you do, and it's the starter for the other team. Because every hitter is just dying to get up there and hit. Because anything in the air is a home run. Yeah. So Wrigley Field with the wind blowing out and was my least favorite, and Big Shea was my favorite.
Okay.
And Ed, what are your thoughts on this upcoming work stoppage? Do you think that there's you think there's a chance that we're going to get a salary cap?
No doubt there's a chance. The last potential work stoppage in I forget 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. I remember looked like we were headed towards it. Then they took a vote, and the young players, there's a ton of young players, 800. Hold on, I got to get this right. I looked it up today. 873 pitchers appeared in the big leagues this year. Now, most of them are going to be very young. A lot of them are going to be young Dominican relievers, guys that grew up in abject poverty. So when it comes down to a vote, if they come down to a vote at the end for a salary cap or some version thereof, these young players are not going to, I'm concerned about the future of the game and the young players behind me. They don't care about that. I mean, they're coming from poverty. Right. And the union's going to have a very hard time to hold everybody together. Back in my day in 81, and then we had a 1-day strike in 85. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
I remember I was at LaGuardia. We had to fly home from Montreal. We had to get our own tickets. Oh my God, we had to figure that out. And so I'm at baggage claim at LaGuardia, and the writer's there, and he says, Ed, what do you think of what's going on? I says, I don't know what they're thinking. That was the quote. The next day, Rusty pulls me aside and goes, I got a message for you from Gene Orza, who was Don Fear's assistant. I thought it was going to be like, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. I said, yeah, what's the message? He said, shut the F up. So there was no trace of dissent or disunity, but it's different now. And I think the reason I bring up 800 pitchers, you got so many more players now, and the owners, the guys that are running the Major League Baseball, they're smart. These lawyers in New York are smart. They got that minimum salary up to over $700,000 or close to it with licensing. You might be making over $800,000 to a young Dominican, a 22-year-old Dominican. You think he's going to vote for a work stoppage, or any kid that wasn't a high draft pick?
Right.
No.
I would have a hard time, now voting to stop it, and if that pisses off everybody at the union, I don't care. And, they've got their own problems there, but, so I think it's definitely a strong possibility. We're the only sport without a salary cap, Think about it. And people say, well, the billionaires will get richer. Well, go complain to the NFL owners,
Yeah.
You just say, the value of every franchise is going to go up if they have a salary cap in baseball. The Minnesota Twins went on the market. I don't think they got an offer. For the team, or if they did, it was extremely low. Now, one NFL team goes on the market and doesn't get an offer. It's not going to happen.
Never. Right? Yeah.
Never.
It's never going to happen.
You have costs of certainty. That's what's going to make the franchise more valuable. The Marlins can't compete. Somebody asked the guy that runs the Green Bay Packers. They don't have an owner. They're owned by the people, but they have a guy that runs the team, the board of directors, whatever. So he's like the owner. He's taking care of all that. Somebody asked him, hey, without a salary cap, what are you guys if you were in baseball? And he said the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah.
The smallest market. Think about that. I remember not too long ago, the Penguins and the Steelers won the Super Bowl and the Stanley Cup, and the Pirates had no chance, none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
sad. It's sad. And disparity between the highest and the lowest. The Mets are at 300 and the Marlins are 85 or something. That's not sustainable.
No, something has to be done. We've been talking about it for a while that if there's a work stoppage, it's probably going to be a long work stoppage.
Do you think if the owners throw them more in the revenue, like more of the piece of the pie, you think that would entice even more players?
Not if those words salary cap or anywhere it's not. It's like not acceptable. It's a deal stopper. Those words, salary cap and luxury tax, no one pays attention to it. It's ridiculous. And
no, the big guys just
the big guys just say, we'll pay it. Then you got it's unfair. It's really unfair, and it's un-American. To have a system where only certain teams can compete. Now people will say, well, the Royals won it that one year. Yeah, and then they lost every player.
Yeah,
right. You can't keep your team together.
That 1 year, you said it. That's one right. year.
That's right. And and no offense to the Yankees and the Dodgers, they think they're smarter than everybody else. We'll see how smart they are if everybody has the same amount of money to work with. Boy, that would be illuminating. We see then we really see who the best GMs are.
Yeah. It's just so funny how things have changed from when you guys were fighting. Last week we had your friend John D'Acquisto on, right?
Yes, and I know John very well.
Yeah, we were talking about free agency and what you guys went through with the owners and how the young kids now have no clue what you guys went through.
Yeah. Back in our day, you always heard the words, insurance, pension. You never hear that anymore. You never hear those words. True. What you're going to hear now is free agency, arbitration, average salary. It's like college football. They've turned that thing into a dumpster fire. Yeah. With free agency and unlimited, player movement, and you just don't hear the same things during a work stoppage that you heard back in 1981, for instance.
And let me ask you too. Do you think, or how is the upcoming work stoppage, possibility? How is that going to affect how teams sign guys this year? Like,
that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think anybody. Somebody said that. Well, that's why the Angels only signed Kurt or Suzuki. Was it Kurt Suzuki to a 1-year deal. And that's not the reason. The reason they signed him to a 1-year deal is because Perry Benassi, the GM, who I worked for and with in Toronto, has 1 year left on his deal. And that's a tough place to work, man. I don't know. I don't know. It just seems it's tough to win there. And, they got a couple of bad contracts that are really hurting them. And it's tough. So, but I don't think that's the reason. You might start seeing it where you might start seeing it. But we're so stupid as an industry. I remember with the threat of a strike looming, what a team started doing, they started front loading free agents' contracts to make sure we pay him the most before. If they strike, he's going to be making such little. We're giving him an incentive to vote yes.
Yeah.
But the big guys are going to do what they want to do. I mean, if the difference between getting a guy and not getting a guy is you had to front load the contract to protect them in case of a work stoppage, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, So
yeah,
it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be ugly. But the time might be right for it.
The only thing is, baseball finally has been coming back. Right, it's making a comeback. Like we said, the best postseason viewership since 2017, and now fans are coming back. You got kids again, and then the work stoppage is. I'm afraid it's just gonna set things back again.
Yes, I agree. Time. Yeah, but that's the nature of the beast. That's what we're in, and I don't. If you look at the bottom 5 or 6 teams in revenue, how are they drawing? Miami's not drawing anybody. Tampa's not drawing anybody. Milwaukee's the anomaly. They've done just a super job there. But Kansas City, they have no chance. They have no chance. And it's sad. That's really sad.
It's sad to see great franchises like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who used to always be in it when you were playing. The Cincinnati the Reds backed into the postseason, yes, but we saw what happened in the postseason. No match for the Dodgers at all. The Mets just handed them that. So it's
30% of the teams get to the postseason now. People say, "Wow, everybody's getting the post." Yeah, but you're the last wild card. You got no chance.
Nah. You're right, but I can't believe this hours flew by. So, Chris, do you have anything else you want to ask Ed?
You know what? I think that's about it. We could probably keep going for another hour or two if we really wanted to.
Let me just summarize why I think pitchers' injuries are so high.
Let's talk about this.
For me, it's the 3 Bs: the balls, the bats, and the ballparks.
Okay.
Ballparks, every ballpark is smaller than it went replaced. Every renovation makes it smaller than it was. There's no foul territory anymore, which is very helpful to pitchers.
Yeah.
The balls, every year I get a few dozen balls to have people sign, and I give them away. Like Keith will sign a dozen, and I'll give those away to charity. And boy, these balls are like a cue ball, and they're hard as a rock, and there's no seams on them. And then the bats, you remember the ash bats. I remember if somebody hit a line drive, I'd look at the bat, and you could see the indentation of the seams in the bat. That's how soft the wood was. These bats now, it's Canadian maple, the way they cure it and the coating they put on it. You could drive nails with that thing and it wouldn't dent. So basically they're hitting golf balls with aluminum bats. So what do? As a pitch, when I came up, it was work fast, pitch to contact, meaning let your defense work for you. So if there was a 2-0 pitch, I just pick out the bottom third, outer half of the plate and just throw a fastball there, and have at it. You're not going to take me deep the opposite way. If I don't make a mistake, you're probably going to get a single or hit a ground ball, blah, blah, blah. Now it's pitching to contact is the biggest no-no. They pitch away from contact. And what does that mean? More breaking balls. That's what it means. Yeah. So, and what do? They have spin rate. So I guarantee you that a kid goes out there, maybe they're measuring it in the minor leagues. They probably are. Goes out in Double-A, pitches a great game, he gets a win, and they come in and say, your spin rate was down last game. You got to get that spin rate back up. So now you're snapping off breaking balls, and that's why we have so many elbow injuries. You notice now, in my day, it was shoulder. That was my biggest fear, was my shoulder, and I took care of my shoulder because you use your shoulder more on fastballs. You're using your elbow on breaking balls. So now it's all Tommy John stuff now. That's it.
And a lot.
So an 800, every team that averaged 29 pitchers. The 83 Mets, look it up. We finished last. We had 15 pitchers the whole year, and I think 3 of them were September call-ups, and Ronnie Darling, I think, was one of them. We had 15 as the last place team. Now, Dodgers had 38. Teams are averaging 29. I think the Orioles, somebody said they went through 50 maybe.
They did.
They had 20 guys on the DL at one point this year.
Yeah,
that is not sustainable, and it's going to get very expensive for the teams. This is a good subject. We're actually going to have a sports medicine doctor come on in a couple of weeks, and we're going to go over all this stuff with him. Well, I'd love to be on with him, or I'll call in.
If you listen, when we set it up, we'll set it up so that you can come on with him, because
perfect. That would be perfect.
Yeah, he's great, and I'd love to have you on for that. But Ed, we want to thank you. Anytime you want to come on, you're welcome.
Hey, look at this real quick. This is the 15 pitchers that pitched in 1983. So you were 100% right. 15.
Yeah. And I remember that's that.
Yeah. And how many were called up? I think the guys with the fewest. Brent Gaff was there the whole year. Tim Leary might have been a call up.
Darling might have been a call up. He only pitched.
Oh no, Ronnie was for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was before. Yeah, Walt was traded for Hojo. That's right. Doug Sisk. Yeah, I remember.
You had the exact number.
Doug Sisk was there the whole year. The guy listed below number 12. Who was? Oh, that's Darling.
Yeah, that's Ron.
I hardly see that. Neil Allen.
Darling, Ownby.
Brent Gaff. Yeah, Ownby was definitely a call-up.
Yeah. Craig Swan was there all year, of course.
He was.
Torres
if you look at the top, the guys that got the most work were the ones that were there the longest.
Yeah, 4 guys that had at least 20 starts.
Yeah.
You had Swan with 18, and then you had Holman had 10, and then the bottom you had, 4 or 5 each.
Yeah, so, I remember.
Yeah, and Tom Seaver. Geez, if Seaver was not, that was a dumb rule. That compensation pool. Let's have a perennial powerhouse sign a free agent, and the team that loses him, they get to pick from a last place team.
Yeah,
who didn't sign anybody.
Yeah,
I asked Joe McIlvain. I said, "How back then he had all these guys in the minor leagues that had to, were getting ready to come up, and so they didn't think anybody was going to take a 39-year-old pitcher or 38. He was born in 44, so that was 83. So he just turned 39 in November, and so nobody thought anybody was going to take a pitcher of that age making that kind of money." And the money was ridiculously low compared to today. But and I talked to Jerry Reinsdorf about this, and he said, this is a guy, look at his numbers. 231 innings, 201 hits. So he goes over to the White Sox and wins like 15 and then 16. His second year over there was better than his first.
And his 300.
Tom Seaver, the top of the rotation with Dwight Gooden and Ron Darling in 84. He might have won the World Series.
Yeah, Orozco he was third in the Cy Young that year.
That's right. Oh, he was unhittable. Jesse was absolutely
1.47 ERA.
He knows. That year he was great. And then Seaver goes on to win his 300 game at Yankee Stadium. At Yankee Stadium. And I'm watching that, and I'm getting sick to my stomach. I mean, I was happy for Tom, of course, but I'm like, and in those. And this is funny, in those White Sox those ugly uniforms, which I have about 5 boxes with pieces of Seaver's White Sox uniform in them that somebody gave me, just sitting in the closet.
It's like Mickey Mantle running out on the field in an Expos uni or something. It just doesn't look. There's something terribly wrong about that.
It's one more quick comparison. It's like when Joe DiMaggio coached for the Oakland A's.
Oakland A's, that's right.
And he was in that. Chris,
Yellow sleeveless uni with green socks. Oh God, Joe.
It was crazy. But anyway, so Ed, we'd love to have you back on anytime you want. I'll get in touch with you when we have the sports medicine doctor come on.
Yes, please do.
That'll be a really good show. All right, I want to go.
Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, I want to go over our schedule really quick in the last 30 seconds. Friday night, 10 p.m. I think former Mets manager Mickey Callaway is coming on Friday night. I'll talk to him in a couple days just to make sure he's going to come back this Friday. And next Monday, we are off. So Friday night, probably Mickey, and then Monday we're off. But Ed, once again, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Perfect. Thanks very much, guys.